Now, I had a feeling that Xiaomi wouldn't hang about too long before launching its first budget blowers of 2021, and sure enough it held out for about a week and a half before popping out this wee bundle of joy right here, the Redmi Note 9T. Now, £200 bags you one of the most affordable 5G smartphones around, although Xiaomi already kind of rules that budget 5G roost with the excellent and dazzlingly colourful Mi 10T Lite, which I am really rather fond of. So is the Redmi Note 9T good enough to steal my love away? Well, I've been using it as my full-time personal smartphone this week, so here's my in-depth Redmi Note 9T review, and for more on the latest and greatest budget blowers, please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Now first up, I gotta say the design here is kind of hit and miss. It is similar to the Mi 10T Lite with that rounded camera chassis, but the glossy surface has been replaced with a gently textured finish on the Redmi Note 9T, which means you won't be constantly having to wipe the muck off the back. That said, while I quite like the daybreak purple colour here on the Redmi Note 9T, I'm definitely a much bigger fan of that ridiculous Hawaiian style design here on the old Mi 10T Lite. And yes, I realise I've got absolutely no taste whatsoever and therefore should not be offered any kind of professional assessment when it comes to design, but seriously, the Redmi's plastic arse has so far survived a week of my company without scratching up to buggery, while the screen is coated in Gorilla Glass 5 and extra secured with a screen protector. While the Redmi Note 9T is also splash proof, so you can take it out in a typical inclement British drizzle, you can drool all over it if that's your thing, just don't go dunking it in actual water. So anyway, let's have a shuft here at the software, and what you've got here is old Android 10, which is a bit disappointing for a phone launched in 2021, but it is at least covered up with the latest MiUI 12 launcher. Before anyone asks, no, I didn't see any adverts at all the entire time I was using the Redmi Note 9T as my personal smartphone, not a single solitary sod. However, as with other MiUI 12 smartphones that I've reviewed in the past, I did see a couple of funny, quirky little bugs here and there. But despite its little quirks and foibles and everything, I still really like that MiUI 12 launch, I've got to be perfectly honest. Some of the tools that it throws in there are really handy, such as the ability to listen to YouTube videos while the phone is hibernating. Great news if you find a really good podcast or audiobook on there that you just want to listen to without having to have the screen on the whole time. And a few other bits that I'll mention later, like those nifty game turbo tools. But oh my golly gosh, is there an awful lot of crapware stuffed on this thing. Go on, bugger right off Facebook, do one LinkedIn, eat my ass, tile fun. You've got NFC support on here for your contactless payments, quite handy in our COVID-y world, and Xiaomi's face recognition works really well as well, even in quite dark environments. But even so, I rarely had to rely on it because that edge-mounted fingerprint sensor is the shiz. As for your storage space, where you got 64 or 128 gigs stuffed on here, depending on how much cash you've got to splash, and that's expandable via micro SD as well. Nice. Now the Redmi Note 9T's 6.53-inch IPS screen is pretty much standard for a budget handset. It's a full HD plus display, so movies and pics look plenty sharp with vibrant enough colour reproduction to make those visuals rather easy on the eye. And you can also tweak the temperature and all that good stuff to suit your preferences. However, I did find that the Redmi Note 9T's auto brightness feature was less than stellar. Quite often at night, the screen would simply be too dim to comfortably read, so I'd end up having to dick about with the manual slider. And also there's no 90Hz refresh rate support on this thing either. It tops off at 60Hz, which is a real shame because a lot of budget rivals now do offer that 90Hz option. In fact, the Mi 10T Lite tops off at 120Hz, so seriously Xiaomi, WTF. Still, you do get a stereo speaker setup with the usual caveat that the earpiece speaker is noticeably less powerful and more tinny than the bottom speaker. And yeah, there's a lovely little headphone jack housed down there on the bottom edge. Hello little Jackie Jack, God I love you. And I had no problems with the Bluetooth connectivity on this thing either, apart from one tiny little dropout which only lasted a second or two right back when I first started testing it out. Apart from that, absolutely fine. Unfortunately, I did see some jankiness from the Mediatek Dimensity 800U chipset, which is joined here on the Redmi Note 9T by 4 gigs of RAM. Like one time when I launched the camera app and just tried to take a photo, this Xiaomi blower absolutely shat itself and had to be rebooted in order to recover. And another time the Deezer app simply refused to play any music, which for a music streaming service is kind of a drawback. But these little quirks aside, the Redmi Note 9T was generally well behaved, and gamers can certainly get stuck into some Call of Duty when they feel the need to kneecap some strangers. Performance is limited, so that graphics quality on Call of Duty tops off at the medium levels, but the frame rate was thankfully smooth enough to keep things competitive. And meanwhile, MiUI's Game Turbo feature is sat there in the background like a kind of silent overload, just making sure that everything's doing exactly what it should, and adding in some bonus features like the ability to bring up windowed apps while you're gaming. You've got some sweet dual SIM support here, and both of those slots can actually handle 5G as well, which is rare at this price point, so that is chuffing lovely. Meanwhile, the beefcake 5000 mAh battery means you'll be rocking and rolling on the Redmi Note 9T all day without any concerns about it running dry. Certainly, I never managed to get it below about sort of 20-30% by the time I was tucked up with Teddy in bed. And the 18-watt charging support ain't too bad at all for this price point. Now, for your photography needs, the Redmi Note 9T dishes up a 48 megapixel primary camera sensor using 4-in-1 pixel binning to produce 12 megapixel photos. My test shots did often lack that sharp finish, while there's clear oversaturation which bleaches colours in strong daylight. And if you're trying to snap a living subject, you'll often get blur unless they're barely moving. Still, despite all this complaining, I did get some decent looking pics with accurate colours when conditions weren't taxing. When things do get dark, you can expect loads of grain, and while the night mode does help to liven up those colours and smooth things out, it's still sadly far from impressive. The Redmi Note 9T also sports a 2 megapixel depth sensor to ensure your portrait shots look smart with accurate edge detection. But the final spot in this triple lens setup is taken up with the obligatory 2 megapixel macro lens, and frankly, I'd rather take photos with my butthole. And that doesn't even make any sense. The Redmi goes all the way up to 4K for your home movies, and the results are very similar to what you get from the photo capture. Basically, as long as the conditions are alright, then the video will look decent too. It's absolutely fine for your simple home movies. Up front is a 13 megapixel selfie shooter, and again this struggles sometimes in testing conditions, but copes alright otherwise, with the usual portrait smart to help you stand out. There's a screen flash feature for low light shots too if you be gramming all night, although this made me look like I had full on jaundice. Or maybe I actually do. What day is it? So right there is my full and final review of the Redmi Note 9T after using it as my personal handset. And I gotta say, my heart still lies with the Mi 10T Lite. Love you, honey bunch. Promise I'll never stray again. There's quite a lot to like about the Redmi Note 9T, but it doesn't really do much to stand out from the crowd apart from having that 5G support, which of course the Mi 10T Lite also offers, along with the 120Hz display and slightly better performance from that 750G as well. But it'd be great to hear your own personal thoughts on the Redmi Note 9T and the Xiaomi range in general. Please do bung your comment down below. Check out my Mi 10T Lite review if you haven't done already. That's live right now on TechSpert, and have yourselves a lovely rest of the weekend. Cheers everyone. Love you.